Alexander grew up in a house that felt larger than his own sense of self. His father, a stern man of wealth, believed that emotions were liabilities and that efficiency in every interaction was paramount. His mother, kind but distant, often delegated her attention to chores and charity work, leaving Alexander to navigate his childhood largely alone. He learned early that attention had a price, that smiles could be bought, that influence could be extracted silently from every gesture and word. It was in these quiet, observation-filled afternoons that Alexander discovered his first lessons in strategy, not in textbooks, but in life itself. School was a battlefield disguised as education. Alexander noticed patterns, who teachers favored, which students manipulated friendships for advantage, and which conversations revealed hidden ambition. He quickly learned to observe, to listen, and to record. He developed a mental ledger, debts owed, favors earned, alliances formed and broken. While others played, Alexander studied. While others sought popularity, he studied psychology, body language, tone, and intent. By the time he reached adolescence, Alexander understood the mechanics of influence better than most adults around him. Money was distant yet omnipresent. He saw its power in shaping perception, opening doors, and elevating status. Social maneuvering, he realized, was a form of currency even more potent than cash. After college, Alexander entered the corporate world with a strategic patience that few could match. His first role was seemingly modest, junior analyst in a medium-sized firm. But Alexander saw potential everywhere, in underestimated colleagues, in poorly designed processes, in subtle opportunities overlooked by management. He mastered internal politics swiftly, quietly influencing outcomes, positioning himself as indispensable. By his mid-20s, he had moved into management. Not by shouting or self-promotion, but by cultivating trust, masking his ambition, and leveraging subtlety as his weapon. Colleagues admired him for fairness, efficiency, and intelligence. Yet he understood that admiration was conditional, a fragile currency easily converted into envy or resentment. Romantic relationships were a paradox for Alexander. He longed for genuine connection but found it increasingly difficult to reconcile with his strategic mind. Vanessa, his first real intellectual equal, arrived at a company retreat. She challenged him openly, questioned assumptions, and occasionally bested him in negotiations. For the first time, Alexander experienced frustration, admiration, and attraction all intertwined. Their interactions were a dance of power and influence, sometimes playful, sometimes tense, always illuminating hidden aspects of himself. Alexander realized that relationships were not merely tools for influence. They could challenge and transform the person wielding the power. As his career accelerated, Alexander began managing multi-million-dollar acquisitions, investor negotiations, and high-stakes deals. Every interaction was calculated, social events required charm without vulnerability, partnerships demanded subtle persuasion, and every public appearance reinforced a narrative of competence and control. Money flowed, influence grew, and social status became both shield and cage. Colleagues who had once been rivals became allies through carefully orchestrated gestures, others were quietly marginalized by omissions he never admitted. Alexander had mastered the art of strategic absence, recognizing that silence often achieved more than speech. But wealth and influence brought new challenges. Socially, Alexander's life became performative. Parties, galas, charity events, each required a balance between appearing spontaneous and maintaining control. Missteps could damage reputation, errors could cost millions. He studied human behavior relentlessly, who sought approval, who feigned generosity, who hid motives behind laughter. Alexander's private life shrank as his public persona expanded. Friends were chosen selectively, romantic interests were cautiously vetted. Trust, once freely given in childhood, became currency he rationed meticulously. Financially, Alexander discovered the dual nature of money. It enabled freedom but attracted scrutiny. Investments required not just profit analysis but understanding the human psychology of partners, competitors, and regulators. Wealth amplified influence but also magnified exposure. Betrayals were frequent, sometimes subtle, sometimes overt. Alexander learned to anticipate, to mitigate, to convert potential threats into opportunities. Every misstep of a colleague, every hesitation, every error became data, feeding his ever-growing mental map of advantage. Personal crises began to accumulate. Alexander, despite his mastery of systems, influence, and wealth, faced isolation, a gnawing emptiness. Friends and lovers often left, burned by manipulation or by emotional neglect. He realized that relationships cannot thrive solely on strategy. He began to question the cost of his ambition. Was power worth solitude? Was wealth worth emptiness? Could influence replace genuine human connection? These reflections were uncomfortable, but they sharpened his awareness, forcing him to consider a new kind of mastery, one that integrated ethics, empathy, and self-awareness into ambition. Years passed. Alexander's empire expanded. Deals, money, social influence, and public acclaim grew exponentially. But alongside growth came a deeper understanding of human fragility, the subtle betrayals that occur without notice, and the impermanence of status. Vanessa reappeared at a corporate symposium, reminding him of the lessons of vulnerability and authenticity. He realized that influence without integrity, money without purpose, and social mastery without trust were ultimately hollow. Alexander began reshaping his approach. Wealth was now leveraged for sustainable influence, relationships cultivated with transparency, and social interactions approached as spaces for collaboration rather than domination. The pivotal moment came when Alexander faced a high-risk investment promising astronomical returns. Traditionally, he would have seized it for immediate gain, ignoring collateral consequences. But now, he hesitated, reflecting on ethics, relationships, long-term outcomes, and the legacy of his actions. He chose a measured path, a balance of profit, risk mitigation, and preservation of human trust. The choice yielded slower financial gain, but the relationships, loyalty, and reputation he safeguarded proved invaluable. Alexander realized that true mastery was not winning every battle, but navigating systems in a way that preserved conscience and integrity. As decades passed, Alexander became not just a wealthy and powerful man, but a mentor and architect of influence. Social interactions became deliberate yet authentic. Money served as a tool, not a symbol of dominance. Influence was exercised with conscience. The people he once manipulated became collaborators, protégés, and advisors. Alexander's reflection extended beyond personal gain. He studied the broader impact of his decisions on communities, industries, and societies. Power, wealth, and social mastery were no longer instruments for control, they were vehicles for meaningful change. Finally, Alexander sat alone in his penthouse overlooking the city, reflecting on his journey from a lonely, calculating child to a master of influence, wealth, and social networks. He understood that true power lies in responsibility, true wealth lies in legacy, and social mastery lies in trust and authenticity. The lessons he learned through decades of observation, manipulation, loss, and reflection converged into clarity. Success is hollow without integrity, influence is destructive without empathy, and wealth is meaningless without purpose. He smiled quietly, not in triumph, but in understanding. He had not only survived the psychological games of life, he had transformed them into a legacy of conscious mastery.